Welcome back to Old Guy REI. In this episode of Workman Confessions, I thought I would talk about the universe. And the thought I had about that was that, and maybe you could tell me if this ever happens to you in your life, but you might be talking to a friend about whatever topic, and then over the next few days you start getting these messages from the universe that are kind of pertaining to that same subject. Well, I heard a message today that said to be proud of where you are, even if you're not where you want to be, and that every step counts and every effort matters. And, okay, maybe that was on TikTok and maybe it wasn't the universe talking to me, but the message is still relevant. So lately, I've been thinking about talking about wins. A lot of times you'll hear me talk about all the challenges, not necessarily in our daily lives, but in our real estate investing journey. And I was talking to a friend the other day, and it was kind of funny because I asked him what wins he's had recently, and he had to think about it. And I think a lot of us might be the same because we don't really go to wins first. We go to the challenges first and the problems and the lessons and all that stuff. And we've had plenty of those. But as we talked, I was thinking that we have several wins. Maybe they're not huge, maybe they're not home runs, but there are several small ones, and I think it might be helpful for us to concentrate on those once in a while to help us keep moving forward. And for example, I think his first answer was that he has been able to close on some properties. And that was just the beginning, right? There was a lot of wins before that, in my opinion, like learning how to analyze a deal, picking a market, learning about financing, and just all the education that he had to go through to get him to that point. And it's been pretty much the same for all of us, I'm sure. But we got into a pretty long conversation about it, and in my world, it's similar. I think a huge win for us was that we were able to get started investing again in real estate after we lost everything the first time. So that was huge. I was able to learn how to do it better this time. It's not perfect, but better, much better. And we've been able to pick up, I think we have 7 properties now over the last 4, going on 5 years. But I think that's pretty huge. But we didn't really think about it. I didn't really think about it. I just kept thinking of the next challenge. And I guess if we think that way, it's going to feel way more challenging. But if you celebrate a little bit as you think about those wins, celebrate you and your spouse, maybe go to dinner after you close on your first property, or whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be dinner. It could just be, just acknowledging what you've accomplished and celebrate that moment. I think some of the other positive things which you could consider wins would be how much we've learned as far as just financial literacy, learning how lending works, learning that banks aren't the only place to go get loans for properties, researching and understanding how taxes and insurance work for your properties, what the costs are, how to calculate that into when you're doing your analysis on a property. And I think while I was thinking about the wins, I was also thinking about all of the challenges. And if you think about that and consider it like a character building exercise, I think I'm going to be one big character when it's all said and done. And when are you going to be done? We're thinking we just want to get as many properties as we can to live comfortably. I've mentioned before, we're not super extravagant. We don't necessarily need to travel, do things like that. We're happy being home together and doing things around the house together and taking the occasional trip. I know Cynthia has a pretty big bucket list. I don't necessarily have one, but I'm happy to jump in there with her and get things crossed off her list. So that'll be fun. So just a quick thought. Let me know if you think about your wins, if you realize you have probably many wins on your journey. And I think there's plenty of challenges to go around, but I think also we don't really talk about wins too much because, I don't know, maybe it feels like you're bragging or something, and people might think you're doing better than you really are, or I don't know. I guess that's just the way I was raised. But yeah, let me know what you think. I'll look forward to your comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider it and like the video if it brought you any value. Thanks.